What are we discussing on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast? How the D-backs season is on life support, and which players do the D-backs need to lean on down the stretch?
You are Locked On Diamondbacks, your daily Arizona Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You're listening to who? The always charismatic host of this podcast, Millard Thomas, a multimedia journalist and graphic designer. So please go check out my website, millardthomas24.myportfolio.com. On there, you can see all my latest work, from my packages to my articles to my photos and my graphic design. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you for making Locked On Diamondbacks your first listen every day. I would not be able to do this podcast without you, my loyal listeners, sharing, subscribing, reviewing, doing all that so I could do this podcast for you. Thank you. It's free. It's available on all platforms, so please continue to tell your friends. And one of those platforms is YouTube, so please hit subscribe to Locked On Diamondbacks on YouTube. And what are we discussing on today's podcast? How the D-back season is on life support. Should we trust the offense to deliver us to the promised land? And which players should we lean on down the stretch? Going to talk about all of that on today's podcast. So let's jump right into it. Now let's first start by talking about the D-backs losing the series finale to the Rockies. The season is officially on life support for the D-backs, who are just struggling right now against the Houston Astros, against the Milwaukee Brewers. We've seen the offense, the defense, so many up and downs, the pitching, so many up and downs from different areas of this D-backs team. Now you look at the standings, and it is getting dicey in the wild card race if you're the D-backs. Thankfully, you still have a 2-game lead on the 4th place team in the NL wildcard race, but you're currently tied with the New York Mets for that 3rd wildcard spot. And we've talked about it on the podcast. Being that 3rd wildcard spot isn't the worst thing in the world. I've said it. I prefer the 3rd wildcard spot. Give the D-backs the same path as last season, because right now, the way the D-backs are playing, very reminiscent to what happened last year, right? The D-backs struggled in the second half last year. In the second half of this year, the D-backs have been phenomenal. But in the month of September, it seems like the D-backs are starting to hit a wall. And right now, we're seeing so many different phases and areas of this D-backs team start to struggle. And we are just praying this D-backs team is able to claw and pry themselves into the postseason, just like they did last year. Because when you go look at the 2023 D-backs run and how they ended the season, it was not good. They were losing to a lot of teams. But the only teams that they were beating were the teams directly affecting them in the NL wildcard race. And right now, that is what the D-backs have to do. You have to at least beat the teams in the NL wildcard race. The Rockies are not one of those teams, but the Brewers, that would be a nice series win. But most importantly, you have to beat the San Diego Padres the last weekend of the year. The season is running out. There's not a lot of time left. As long as the D-backs can stay 2 games in front of the Atlanta Braves, you'll be okay. But you have to start putting together some good performances. This season's almost over. You got the Rockies right now. You got the Brewers next, the Giants, Padres, and then it's over. That is the regular season. You have, after tomorrow's game, 3 series left in the regular season. So it is go time for the D-backs. They cannot keep making mistakes like we saw today. They have to handle their business. They have to handle the teams in front of them. Going against the Rockies in the series finale, you have to get that win. That is a must win. I don't think every single game is a must win from here on out, but you cannot get swept by the Colorado Rockies right before this season ends. If the D-backs miss out on the postseason, you're going to look at this series and be like, how did we get swept by the Rockies? They are playing great. They look good through the first 2 games, but the D-backs should beat Colorado, go into Milwaukee next, get some revenge after they just came into your home ballpark and took it to you guys. The Giants are a team you should be familiar with. And the San Diego Padres, there still could be an opportunity, depending on how the standings shake up, that you go into that Padres series with an opportunity to still take that top wild card spot. But it won't happen unless this D-backs team starts to play well. They look so bad right now. The offense itself had another bad night tonight as they just put up 2 runs and just could muster up nothing. The clutch hitting, I don't know where it's gone for the D-backs this month, but we have not seen it enough. Too much up and down in terms of coming through in big, timely situations. 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position tonight. Only one ball ground into a double play, but I feel like we've seen too much of that recently. Like right now, the D-backs are playing like their early season D-backs. If you remember those first couple months of the season where it felt like Arizona would have good games, maybe big offensive performances, whatever the case may be. But those first couple months felt like the D-backs never scored late in games. It felt like the D-backs struggled to keep opponents from scoring late in games and making comebacks. And it felt like the D-backs never got clutch and timely hitting. It felt like their bullpen was a struggle to begin the season. And everything that went wrong for the D-backs in the beginning of the year feels like it's rearing its head once again right now. Right, the defense was struggling to begin the year. The base running was a struggle to begin the year. I think we're seeing all that over the last couple weeks. Really, in this Brewers and Rocky series, I think we've seen that a ton. Like Eugenio Suarez has been such a good defensive third baseman for the D-backs this season, and we saw him make a couple mistakes tonight. Right, he had that one play earlier in the game where you could have thrown out the guy at third base. Jose Herrera makes a great throw to third. Suarez not able to squeeze the ball. Runner ends up getting the steal at third, and then it leads to more runs in that inning. Later in the game, Eugenio Suarez has an error as well that led to a big inning for the Colorado Rockies. Like you never see Suarez make those kind of mistakes and make those kind of errors. And tonight we did. We've seen some bad base running from the D-backs over the last week plus. We've seen the bullpen, of course, has been super up and down, right? Scott McGough comes in tonight, 2 earned runs, and just continues to be Scott McGough whenever he pitches. And it's like, we probably had to throw him out there. I don't like Scott McGough, but we are running out of options in the bullpen. If you're the Arizona Diamondbacks, it is getting very thin. And so right now for the D-backs, the season is a little bit on life support. The offense is struggling. The starting pitching is struggling. The bullpen is struggling. I thought Jordan Montgomery was decent today. I thought he was fine. Still not a great Monty start, but grading against the curve of himself this season, this is probably one of the better Monty starts, but still not good enough. This Arizona team, it just needs to play not great baseball. It doesn't have to play the baseball it's been at since June 1st, right? That insane run that's been at. But just play near 500 baseball the rest of the season. I don't care how the D-backs make it to the postseason. If they limp in, if they're missing limbs, I don't care. Just make it to the playoffs because that's what happened to the D-backs last year. They just barely made it. They crawled there, right? They were dragging themselves to the postseason last year, and they made it, thankfully, with negative run differential and barely 84 wins. And you know what? It was enough to make it to the postseason, and then they went on that insane run. So for the D-backs this year, I feel the same way. Do whatever you can to make it to the postseason, and then let the cards fall from there. Because once the D-backs make it to the playoffs, I feel a lot better about their chances making it to the World Series than I do right now. And I want to talk about whether or not the D-backs should just trust in their offense to deliver them to the postseason in segment number 2. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on Ella De La Cruz or Mahomes rookie card just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but there's some serious money to drop if you want a card. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Every card that I listed was hit from last week's Arena slab pack drop. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent, with a full grade rationale provided and explanation of how your card was scored. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code LockedOnMLB. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnMLB. Code LockedOnMLB for 10% off your first purchase. All right. Let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's discuss if the D-backs, if they just need to trust in their offense to deliver them to the postseason, because I know this month of September has been a little bit of a slog. The D-backs, it's been frustrating. I know my heart rate goes up and down every time I check the standings, every time I check the score, especially when the D-backs, like a game like tonight, where you see them getting blown out like through 6 or 7 innings. Like it makes you go check the scores around the league, and it's like, what are the Mets doing? What are the Braves doing? Okay, Mets won, but Braves lost. I guess we could take the rest of this game off. That's what it feels like the D-backs are doing right now, and it's not pretty how Arizona is playing, but if this team wants to make it to the postseason, maybe we should just all have trust that the D-backs offense is going to deliver us there, because the offense has been the calling card of Arizona all season. It's been their strength, and maybe we should just believe in the D-back strength to come through once again in the final 2 weeks of the season. Like I said, there's not a lot of games left, about 3 series left, and so maybe we should trust that the D-backs offense, which has gotten us this far in the season, has delivered us this far. Maybe we should believe that they could do it 2 more weeks. The pitching, the rotation, it's been up and down. It's been inconsistent all year, from the health of Jordan Montgomery starting the season now with the team because of the training program, to Erod starting the season hurt, Merrill Kelly getting hurt like his third or fourth start, Zach Gallen missing time this season, right? Ryan Nelson's now out. We've seen Paul Sewald go on the injured list twice. Like the D-backs pitching staff has been so up and down with their health. We're seeing guys like Brandon Pfaadt hit their wall now, Kevin Ginkel, Ryan Thompson. It feels like they're all hitting their wall. This D-backs pitching staff has had moments where they've looked good this season. They've had moments where they've been able to hold it down. But the D-backs pitching has never been the strength of this team this year, has had stretches and weeks where they've looked really good, have been able to really support and carry this D-backs team at times. But looking at the strength of Arizona this season, it is undoubtedly their offense. I think maybe we have to take a step back. I know it hasn't looked pretty. I know this D-backs team has been up and down in September, but maybe we just have to believe that the D-backs offense will deliver us to the postseason, because even when you look at the D-backs stats for this month, as bad as the offense has felt, because you think about tonight's game, you think about game number one, you think about that game number one against the Brewers, and maybe that, one of those games against the Giants, like it feels like off the top of your head. You could think of so many games from this month where the D-backs offense just didn't do anything, didn't show up. And that was maybe the reason they lost, was because of the lack of offense. But the D-backs offense has been so good. I don't think we realize the lack of offensive performances that we've seen this month, even by D-back standards, were rare. Like what we've seen from the D-backs offense this month, 95% of teams in Major League Baseball would take it. If what we're seeing over the last 2 weeks is considered struggling, and the rest of Major League Baseball will sign up for what is considered the D-back struggles, because I was trying to filter the D-backs offensive stats from this September, even tried to dwindle it down to like the last month, or excuse me, the last week. But no matter how you look at it, whether you look at the full September, you just look at the last week of September, even though it's felt like this D-backs offense has been struggling, has been up and down, no matter how you slice it up, this has still been the best team offense in the National League in the months of September. Entering today's game, this was still the number one scoring offense by 15 runs over the second place team this month. You look at average, the D-backs average 15 points higher than any other team entering today's game. WRC plus 18 points higher as well. You look at home runs, D-backs lead in that as well this month. Like the offense, despite feeling like it's been inconsistent, despite the offense feeling like it's been up and down, and maybe not being able to rely on it night after night, at least over the last couple of weeks, the numbers will tell you that is just not true. This is still a juggernaut offense that has been carrying this team the whole season, has been carrying this team in the month of September, and it is an offense that we should just flat out believe and have trust in. And yes, a game like tonight does not make you feel good about the offense at all. 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position, but if you need the silver lining, 11 opportunities with runners in scoring position is a lot. They were still able to get 4 walks and 6 strikeouts. Maybe that's not a ton of walks, but 6 strikeouts only is not a lot. Like this was still, from a plate discipline standpoint, like the D-backs still put up quality at bats. they were still not striking out, drawing a few walks, still getting opportunities, getting on base. The D-backs just weren't converting their opportunities. And so I still have faith that this offense is still the best in baseball, still the best in the National League. And I have faith that this D-backs offense is going to deliver the D-backs to the postseason. I look at the rotation, it's up and down. There's not a lot of guys I trust in that rotation right now. Zach Gallen's starting to come around. Merrill Kelly's starting to come around. But after those two guys, like their rotation is very shaky. I look at the bullpen, very shaky. The D-backs don't know who they want to call up, who they want to keep. We got Brandon Hughes, we got Slade one day, we got Yolbert Diaz, we got Blake Walton the next. Don't know how many relievers I even trust right now at this current moment outside of like AJ Puck and Justin Martinez, and even Joe Mansply is on the short list. Like, there's not a lot of trustworthy D-backs pitchers right now, but of the guys you can trust, I think it's the lineup. I think it's the team offense. It has been incredible all year. Even when we look at the month of September, the numbers, the stats say it's still rolling. Despite the eye test telling you the offense might be a little bit more inconsistent in the last couple of weeks, I think we should just all have faith and trust that this D-backs offense, which has been the number one scoring offense all season, the clutchest offense all season, let's have faith that the final 2 weeks of the season, they're going to come through for Arizona and deliver us a postseason berth. And I want to talk about the players that the D-backs should lean on in their offense in segment number 3. But hey, if you want to buy tickets for an upcoming D-backs game, then the place you need to go, of course, is going to be Game Time, because Game Time is the best place for last minute ticket deals for concerts, sports, comedy, theater, and more. They have tickets for every kind of event. And the best thing about Game Time, they have this feature called all-in pricing. When you toggle this feature on, it shows you the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. You can even get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. And they always have the lowest price guarantee, which means Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a better deal. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. And also, if you want to place a little wager on the D-backs taking the finale against the Rockies, then you want to go to FanDuel Sportsbook, because you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment you can cancel anytime. My favorite thing to do on FanDuel is the same game parlay. Give me the D-backs money line. Give me the over on RBIs for Eugenio Suarez, and give me over on strikeouts for whoever the D-backs pitcher is that day. When that 3-leg hits, it brings a big smile to my face. If you want a big smile on your face, just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right. Let's get back to the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Let's talk about some players that the D-backs need to rely on, because we just talked about the D-backs offense, how the offense has been incredible all season for the D-backs. Feels like they're scuffling a little bit over the last couple of weeks, right? The numbers still say that they're great, but from an eye test and a feel perspective, it feels like they've been a little bit more inconsistent the last couple of weeks. That's why I think for the D-backs, for the last 2 weeks of this season, you might have your idea of what the postseason lineup should be, but I think for the last 2 weeks, I think you at least have to ride the hottest players that you have right now for the D-backs. I'm not saying the lineups that you should throw out the last couple weeks are going to be your optimal lineups for the postseason, but you're not getting to the postseason unless you start to play your best players, start to rely on your hottest hitters. And that's why I think the D-backs have to get a little bit funky with their lineups down the stretch. I think they have to go with the lineups where you say, on paper, that, a month ago, I would not have said that is the best lineup for the D-backs, but with how guys are currently playing, I think you have to make some drastic decisions if you're the D-backs, because it's life alert time right now if you're Arizona. Your playoff postseason chances are right there. You're right on the cusp and the edge of making it or not making it. This will either be a historic, fantastic season where the D-backs finish as the best offense in the league, make it to back-to-back postseasons for only the second time in their franchise history. Like, scenario one is this being a fantastic, historic season by D-backs franchise records, by D-backs franchise history. And scenario two, this could be an all-time D-backs collapse where we have to make some tough decisions entering the offseason. I would much rather have scenario one where I'm happy, or we're talking about D-backs postseason baseball on Locked On Diamondbacks, because I do not want to do 2 weeks of podcast saying who should be fired, who should be cut, who should be traded, who should be DFA'd. Like, I don't want to do 2 weeks of talking about a collapse. I want to talk about the D-backs in the postseason. I think to do that, to get to the playoffs, I said the D-backs need to rely more on their offense. I think there's some specific guys that the D-backs might need to rely on a little bit more, because right now, like I said, I think you have to roll with your hottest hitters in your lineup. And it might be a surprise of who your hottest hitters are, because the three hottest hitters are the three guys that I want to see the D-backs play a little bit more and maybe be in more power positions in the lineup, in more favorable positions, because a guy like Randall Grichuk, a guy like Eugenio Suarez, and a guy like Pavin Smith, all three of those guys are the hottest hitters for the D-backs right now. And I think they should all play more and potentially play together. And that kind of sounds crazy. Eugenio, he's playing every single day, but Grichuk and Pavin both kind of overlap and play the same position. They both are playing in left field with Gurriel out, both platooning that spot right now. Lefty for Pavin Smith, righty for Randall Grichuk. And I think both of them should be playing right now. And maybe you think it's Randall Grichuk in left field, Pavin Smith at DH, and then you're either taking the DH spot from like a Jock Peterson or something, or maybe you're taking an outfield spot from Jake McCarthy. But whatever the case may be, Jake McCarthy and Jock Peterson should both be on the bench. And Grichuk and Pavin Smith should both be playing over those two guys right now. With the way those guys are playing the months of September, Grichuk and Pavin should probably be playing more than Jock Peterson and Jake McCarthy right now. And a month ago, I would have thought that's insane. I would have thought that's blasphemous. But right now, Grichuk in the months of September, 31 plate appearances, has a 319 WRC plus, a 448 average, a 484 OBP, a 1069 slug. He's got 5 home runs in the month of September. He's been the best D-backs hitter, and he can't play every day because it's either him or Pavin Smith. And I'm saying both of them should be playing every day. Your best player should be playing probably every day down the stretch. Eugenio Suarez, I know defensively he struggled tonight, but offensively he's still been elite for the D-backs. And that's why I think Eugenio, like I've been saying so much on this podcast, needs to bat cleanup. We saw it this past weekend, and he was incredible batting cleanup. I don't know why Torey Lovullo is insistent on making him bat seventh. And I do think it was the Jeff Bannister game where he batted cleanup, and look how it worked out. D-back scored double-digit runs, clutched it out late in the game. Like, Eugenio Suarez is the best D-backs hitter over the last 3 months. He is the best hitter that we've ever seen over a second half of the season. Like, he's quite literally Babe Ruth right now over the last couple months, and yet he's batting seventh. Imagine batting Babe Ruth seventh in your lineup. That's what the D-backs are doing night after night. He's been the most incredible hitter. He's been the clutchest hitter, but yet he's never in these power positions in the lineup. D-backs offense is struggling, but we're batting our hottest hitter seventh. Grichuk needs to play every day. He needs to be batting higher. I like Grichuk when he's batting like a number 3 for the D-backs. Eugenio needs to be batting cleanup. And then Pavin Smith, he needs to be batting 5th or 6th. Like, if you want to go Grichuk, Eugenio, Christian Walker, and then like Pavin Smith as your 3 through 6, like, I would not be upset at that at all. Pavin Smith as well, entering today's game, 239 WRC plus, 367 average, 459 OBP, 833 slug, and 37 plate appearances in the month of September with 4 home runs. Like, those 3 guys have been so good for the D-backs this month, and I just think we need to rely on them more. It sounds weird because if you're playing Grichuk and Pavin Smith, that means you're probably not playing Jake McCarthy and Jock Peterson, and maybe that's the right call right now. Jock Peterson entering today's game, his WRC plus of the month of September, 97 with a 348 slug, a 217 average, only 1 home run. Like, he's been struggling this month. Same with Jake McCarthy. entering today's game, 34 WRC plus, 218 average, a 236 slug. Like those two guys I love. They've been fantastic all season, have held it down for the D-backs, especially when they've dealt with injuries to Martes and the Walkers. Like Jock and Jake McCarthy were probably the two most important offensive pieces right after post All-Star break in August and in July. Like those are probably the two guys carrying this D-backs offense, but right now they're struggling. Or we might need to see a little bit more Paven, a little bit more Eugenio, and a little bit more Grichuk if the D-backs want to make it to the postseason in the final couple weeks of their regular season. Now that's it for this edition of the Locked On Diamondbacks podcast. Come back tomorrow for more Diamondbacks news coverage and insight. And as always, stay safe, stay healthy. Deuces.